The Democratic enclave of New York is experiencing a mass exodus of businesses like never before. Meanwhile, well-known giants like Tesla, Chevron, Oracle, and Charles Schwab have all left the ultra-liberal state of California. That's nothing compared to what's happening in New York. Since 2005, New York has reduced the number of Fortune 500 companies from 125 to just 50. Today to be continued.
New York once hosted the headquarters of 125 of the 500 largest American corporations, but now only 50 remain. 54 of these financial giants moved to Texas, and Florida took in 22. Do you know what makes Texas and Florida different from New York? It's very simple. These are Republican states, which means they're not run by Marxists, but by more or less normal bureaucrats. Of course, they're also robbers, but they're much more reserved about it.
This catastrophe, caused by the Democrats, was happening even before New Yorkers voted for Zaikrana Mamdani last November. Mamdani, of course, ran on a Democratic Socialist platform, promising to raise taxes on corporations and wealthy New Yorkers. And since November, the corporate exodus that has been draining New York for the past 2 decades has only accelerated. It is reported that relocation and moving attorneys in Florida are seeing an unprecedented surge in inquiries. According to corporate filings obtained by Florida news agencies, many New York companies have filed paperwork to relocate. Just a few weeks after Mamdani's election, this is already being called the Mamdani migration. This is an unprecedented number of both residents and businesses leaving, and they are officially leaving the state with no intention of coming back. It's not about culture, it's not about geography anymore, and it's definitely not about the weather. It's about money. In the end, it's simple, harsh economics. If you didn't know, the maximum income tax rate in New York is 10.9, which is the 3rd highest in the country. But even worse, if you live in the city, you'll pay an additional 3.9 in taxes. New York. This means that a high-income person pays almost 15% of their income to the state and the city. That's on top of federal income and other taxes.
In Florida, for example, it's not a 10% tax, but 0.5%, and there are no city taxes at all. So what does that mean in Florida? Taxes besides the federal ones are additional. There are also state and city taxes. So when you add all that up, people don't really care where they pay. The main thing is how much they have to pay. It turns out that in Florida, it's 3 times less than in New York. And this was before Mamdani started introducing the honest taxes he promised to the voters. By honest, they mean some kind of fantastic things. Basically an absolutely Marxist idea. If a company does something useful for the citizens, and the townspeople pay for many of their goods and services, then the city will punish such a corporation by imposing fines on it.
A company with a profit of $1 million pays corporate tax in New York, sometimes higher, with additional business taxes. In Florida, the corporate tax is 5 with 0 state income tax. According to analyses, a company moving from Manhattan to Boca Raton could save about $7.5 million a year on taxes, rent, and labor costs. This represents a reduction in expenses. And professionals from Wall Street are well aware of this. That's what's already keeping the mayor-elect up at night, isn't it? Every company that leaves New York, absolutely every single one, takes with it what's called the multiplier effect. So, the 32,000 John Pierpont Morgan employees in Texas aren't just reducing Manhattan's direct tax base. Those 32,000 employees aren't eating at Manhattan restaurants. They're not paying rent for apartments in Manhattan, right? They're not shopping in Manhattan stores. They're not using its subway system. Commercial real estate in New York is collapsing, with Manhattan's office vacancy rate rising for years. The mass exodus is worsening this decline. A decrease in occupancy means a reduction in property tax revenue. And that's exactly what the city doesn't need right now, especially if Mamdani is going to keep all his promises.
I talk a lot and often about the stupidity of socialism. Stupidity means the inability to see, even the inability to think. But what exactly will be the result of that wonderful innovation that they think they've come up with? But in reality, it's just a repetition, the same thing that hundreds, maybe even thousands of others have done. For example, we, like Mamdani, will take more from this corporation, from this money bag. They say, after all, these money bags already have so much, and we, the poor, need it, and that gives us the right. In other words, we need it, they have it, so it gives us the right to rob them however we want. Okay, that's the philosophy of a highway bandit. They have money in it, and we need it, so we'll fly over, take it, cut them down because we need it, right? We need it, and they have it. So we took it from the rich once, but the rich know that the time will come and they'll come back again. So the rich pack up and leave for a place where they have protection, and let them get robbed there too, so to speak, but less and for agreed-upon amounts. And now in New York, the one who pays into the city's treasury is disappearing. Simon made it happen. But it doesn't stop there. It's just unbelievable how stupid the socialists are. So each of those who left used to eat there, and probably every day bought food in restaurants, paid for water in stores. There they got their hair cut by local barbers, and the company, so to speak, bought hundreds, sometimes thousands of goods and services from local suppliers and sellers. But usually this is done by small businesses, yes, who also spent this money within the city. All this money generated taxes, but after the wealthy leave, there won't be any. But the thread doesn't end here either. The company rented buildings, which meant there was high competition for buildings and rental spaces, and real estate maintained, so to speak, a very high price, which also, by the way, brought taxes to the city. And when half the city leaves, property owners search high and low for renters and buyers, but there aren't any, so what do? They start lowering prices, well, until a buyer comes along. And if they don't find a buyer, they'll go bankrupt and won't pay taxes to the city or the state either. And everything I've talked about moves to Texas and Florida, to other Republican states, to be continued. Because, ladies and gentlemen, real voting always happens with your feet. Millions have fled Russia. Yes, millions have come to the United States. Russians can say whatever they wish, but no one. Well, maybe a few people do run from the United States, just a handful to Russia, but millions dream of moving from Russia to the United States. They just can't. Otherwise, they would move right away. Not everyone, of course. Then those wanting to leave the United States for Russia, so people are actually voting for the United States, not Russia. So who is going to New York now? Well, instead of those who are running away, who will get benefits, housing, soup, drugs, and the opportunity to live in a tent there, if he wants, starting January 1st on Times Square, Mamdani decided and ordered the police to resist federal agencies so that no one would be evicted, no one would be touched. Of course, he didn't say it like that, but in a complicated way, but everyone understood the point. So, talented, educated, well-earning people are leaving the city, and uneducated illegals, homeless people, and a bunch of, well, disadvantaged people, often unhinged or suffering from something like alcoholism, are coming in. They were promised there that they would be accepted, given warmth, allowed to live, reform, have relationships, eat, drink, and sleep. On the main streets and parks of the city, that is, Central Park in New York and the Metropolitan Museum, will soon become public restrooms. And with that, tourism in the great city that never sleeps will come to an end. Yes, we also forgot about the lawyers who will chase after their clients, auditors, consultants, personal psychiatrists, not to mention expensive prostitutes and fortune tellers.
So, New York officials are panicking about this, and it started even before Mamdani. They introduced various incentives, tax breaks, subsidized rent, and expedited permits, but none of it is working. Business representatives frankly view this as a band-aid on a deep structural wound. The real problem isn't a lack of incentives, but the overall business climate. It's just terrible. The thing is, now you have an elected mayor, a radical socialist who openly says that businessmen and billionaires are the real enemies, they're the true criminals, and he promises to punish them.
So you go up to a person who your well-being and prosperity depend on, and you tell him, your face is crooked, I hate you, and you probably think, that he's going to rush to help you right away. Continuation. Well, like Ukrainians and Trump, it's exactly the same. Yeah, we hate you, give us money. Very smart, right? And Mamdani does the same thing. Maybe he is half Ukrainian. And in Texas, do they not tax people at all? Continuation on income. Zero means nothing, FAs. If you gain and rush there, taxpayers vote with their feet.
Bottom line, this is beyond politics. In the end, this is no longer just politics, it's nothing less than economic triage. New York lost its significance, its relative superiority decades ago, but for many years the city somehow managed to stay afloat. Propped up solely by Wall Street's wealth, that era is over. Just between 2017 and 2022, 125,000 New Yorkers moved to Florida, taking with them $9.2 billion in annual income. And since Mamdani's migration is just beginning, this mass exodus will only get worse. The question is no longer whether New York will decline, the question is how quickly and whether that decline will become irreversible.
I think we've simply entered a new era, from the era of dreadnoughts or aircraft carrier battleships to an era of numerous sea and air drones, which no longer have to concentrate anywhere but live where they are welcome and comfortable. The city of New York has been quietly decaying for many years. More and more, I am sinking into the filth. There are black gangs running around the city, playing an exciting game called New. In Russian, it sounds like knock out the white guy, which usually means beating up. Yes, knocking out, knocking down. Elderly people in Brooklyn, Lower Manhattan, Queens, mostly elderly Jews. The game is very thrilling. You run up from behind and punch an old man in the temple so that he falls from the first blow. Then you can kick him in the head and run away laughing. Now it's not only black gangs, but also Puerto Rican gangs, Venezuelan gangs, and even Mexicans have made it there thanks to Biden, and whites too. They have complete diversification among them. When they need to rob a store, a pharmacy, or throw a driver out of his car, they don't get punished for that in New York. Not at all. Just this past weekend, they released people from pretrial detention. I don't know exactly what it's called there. More than 2,000 criminals. And for the year 2025 in New York, in the city, 70,000 people were released without punishment after arrest, while 123,300 were arrested during the same period. So the police catch them, bring them to jail, of course they feed them, give them water, even wash them, and then more than half are simply released. I don't know how they decide whom to let go and whom not to. Probably the darker the skin, the sooner they are released. Maybe they even call a taxi to take them home. That's why in New York, the new favorite game is called Now Don't Knock Out. That means Bellic. And rob the Jubilee store. They have designer clothes. People will rush in. There will be 50, 60, maybe even 200 people. Pharmacies too. So guys in masks, and with those, what are they called? Not chisels. I forgot. Well, anyway, drivers, it doesn't matter. With something like that. An iron rod. I forgot what it's called. Yeah. And in masks. With those things in their hands, smashing everything, taking stuff. And also hammers, too. Yeah, and some of them run off to waiting minivans or cars, getting paid by the hour. A wonderful, fun game, but for some reason, Wall Street employees don't want to play it. And they're already making faces. Of course, that's probably because of their snobbery and, I guess, white privilege. For residents and non-residents alike, one thing is absolutely clear. You need to get out of New York, and the sooner the better. And people don't go there after New Year's. Continuation in 2026, not just for a day or week, but ongoing. This giant, the symbol of America, turns into a cesspool, and Brooklyn continues. And Brooklyn should separate from the rest. New Amsterdam to organize its own Brooklyn Jewish Republic and put up posts with barbed wire on the border with Manhattan. Until next time.